Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lions Den with another news and commentary. I have some breaking news that I'm following at the moment. We have three possible mass shootings in the last 48 hours. This article comes from CNN. It says this incident happened in the DMV, which is Washington D.C. So it says two men armed with AK style rifles are on the run after opening fire in the courtyard of an apartment complex in Washington, D.C., leaving one dead and five injured, police says. Metropolitan Police are investigating the multiple shooting that happened on the 1300 block of Columbia Road about 10 p.m. on Thursday. Investigators believe the shooting was a drive-by conducted by two male suspects in a light-colored Nissan sedan and armed with an AK-style rifle, authorities says. When police arrived, they found six victims, five men and one woman, suffering from gunshot wounds, said Stuart Emmerman, a district commander. One of the victims were dead at the scene, and the other five were transported to local hospitals with conditions varying from critical to non-critical. The suspect was last seen near the suspect was last seen near the scene of the shooting, police says. There's been another shooting in South Carolina. This article is coming from the New York Times. It says shooting at a South Carolina bar leaves two dead and eight wounded, official says. Two people were killed and eight others were wounded in a shooting early Saturday morning at a sports bar near Lancaster, South Carolina, the authority says. The shooting happened at around 2:45 a.m. at an old school sports bar and grill, the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office said in a news release. The gunman was still at large, it said. The release said 10 people had been shot, two of them fatally, and one person had been treated for injuries sustained in a fall while trying to flee the club. Four victims were airlifted to medical centers, and another four were treated for non-critical injuries. This was a violent incident of huge magnitude that was witnessed by lots of people, Berryfield, Lancaster County Sheriff said. A motive for the shooting was unclear, but Douglas Barfield Jr., a spokesman for the sheriff's office, said on Saturday afternoon that the shooting had been the result of a local conflict. We don't think this was a situation where a random person armed himself and went into a randomly selected location and shot a bunch of unknown people, Mr. Barfield said. In a news conference, Sheriff Feld declined to discuss the nature of the dispute, but said that one of those killed had been involved in the conflict, which had been going on for a couple of months. Near the victim involved in the dispute, nor the person officials were seeking as the gunman were legally allowed to have guns, Sheriff Feld says. They are federally prohibited from previous convictions, he said without elaborating. In a statement, Carla Knight Dees, the Lancaster coroner, identified the fatal shooting victims as Henry Lee Colvin, 29, of Rock Hill, South Carolina, and Aaron Harris, 28, of Kershaw, South Carolina. It was not clear which of the two men had been involved in the dispute. The sheer magnitude of injury is like none I have seen in my 14 years with the coroner's office, she said. The identities and conditions of the survivors were not immediately available. While the exact number of people present during the shooting was not known, Mr. Barfield described the crowd as elbow to elbow in the bar just outside of Lancaster, which is about 60 miles north of Columbia, South Carolina. Mr. Barfield said the bar, which is in a commercial area of town, would draw large crowds, particularly on weekends. The name of the bar owner was not immediately available, but Mr. Barfield said the owner was there at the time of the shooting. Cynthia McDonald, who owns the property, said on a Saturday that she had not known about the shooting and described the bar owner, whose name she could not recall, as a really nice guy. She said the bar had been there at least 20 years. The bar, which has a sign called Old School, but the authorities referred to as Old School, had a history of trouble, they said, which had some issues with the establishment before. Mr. Barfield said this was a place we had answered calls at before. Mr. Barfield said that the county has had its shares of shootings, but that is not known as the shooting capital of South Carolina. I think this might be the third homicide we had all year, he said. And then we have another shooting, this time in Indianapolis. This article comes from Fox 59 affiliate, which is in Indianapolis. It says 6 people were shot in downtown Indianapolis late Saturday night. The Indianapolis Metro Police Department has confirmed that it's investigating the shooting that occurred on the 100 block of West Maryland Street. IMPD officers in the area of Illinois and Maryland heard gunshots coming from nearby approximately 11:20 p.m. Officers were able to find 6 victims at multiple locations near the Steak and Shake restaurant on Maryland Street. EMS personnel responded and transported all 6 victims to a nearby hospital for treatment. Police says that 2 of the victims were listed in critical condition. The other 4 were awake and breathing, and at this time, none of the injuries were appeared to be life-threatening. The gunshot victims were a combination of adults and juveniles, with some minor taken to Raleigh Children's Hospital for treatment. Detectives with the Indianapolis Metro Department aggravated assault team quickly launched an investigation into the incident. At this time, police believe the shooter or shooters fled from the scene. It's unclear if investigators have any suspect information, as they are still in the early stages of their investigation. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. This is the end of the articles. You see, in the last 48 hours, there's 3 mass shootings, possible mass shootings, in 3 different areas, 3 different places: Washington, D.C., South Carolina, and Indianapolis, Indiana. And the police is still looking for suspects at the moment. So basically, this weekend is really been dealing with a lot of shootings now in 3 different areas. So tell me what you think about this. Like, click, subscribe, and remember to click the notification bell for all the news and commentary. And with that being said, this is Lions Den signing off. Deuces.